Well, Robert Earl Dean, we got a really good one for us today. I don't know how I feel about this interview because it's like you have this young person that has been shifting the atmosphere since she's been around, and so she hails from the city of Los Angeles,
Mhm.
but they kind of like beat us the other day from San Diego, but that's okay. Robert Earl Dean, who do we have with us today?
We are so honored and privileged to have this young lady who is making some major, major noise throughout this country. I believe that she is one of the most innovative, um, supportive, and inspiring women that we have in the community right now and
Hmm.
in the country.
Amen.
This is Miss Kiesha Nix. She is the LA Lakers Charitable Affairs Director, and she's Lakers
Vice
Youth
President.
Foundation Vice
Hmm.
President.
Hmm.
So she has many hats,
Yeah.
and as our listeners and viewers will see, she has a heart for people, and
Mhm.
that's more important than anything else. Is her love and heart for people.
Well, Miss Nix, good morning to you.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, guys.
I see you in the gold. Let's talk about that color you rocking this morning.
Yes,
You know, I have to represent the purple and gold at all times.
yes.
So let me ask you this question. Let's just start off. Here's this young lady from South Central LA, and you become the first vice president, African American woman
Mhm.
of the LA Laker organization in your area. Tell me, could you have written this story back in the day?
I could not. And thank you for using the word young over and over again. I hope my son is listening out there. Um, but no, I grew up in South Central, but my family grew up diehard Lakers fans.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have a choice in my house. And I went to Laker parades. I mean, I watched the Laker greats. And then to have this, happen, and for me to be there working amongst James Worthy and Magic Johnson and Byron Scott and Robert Horry. Like, those are my colleagues now.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that I could have ever imagined.
Well, it just goes to show you how our God works. He said he will give you the desires of your heart. And I know that you're serving as an example, a living example to so many that if you believe and you work for it, that God will help you achieve that.
Yes, hard work, Robert, is the great equalizer. So I believe that it doesn't matter where you start. It's about the journey and about, where you finish and what kind of legacy you leave. And so it didn't matter that I started in, South Central Los Angeles. God is everywhere. And he sees you no matter where you are. And so he saw my heart, he saw my desire to help my community. As a matter of fact, I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to move too far away from my community because I always want to be able to get there. I always want to be present. And so, I just believe that how I live my life and hopefully encouraging others that if they see this, they can do it. You have to see it in order to be it. And so I'm just excited about, all that God has blessed me with and all that he still has left for me to do.
So let me ask you this question. You have gotten to a very, very prominent position in the industry, in sports, and pretty much the country. But when you were a kid, and I want to walk through being a kid in South Central. Were you a bookworm? Were you a nerd? Were you the party, a life of the party? What were you like back then? Because now you are in the presence of, like I said, in your position, you could go all the way to the White House. You could
She's a
you could go wherever
socialite.
you want to go. So my question is, but how were you growing up?
I was always very social. That's a definite. I was always very active. On my block, in my community. My grandparents raised me, and they made sure that I went to church and I was in the youth choir and I did all the youth activities. They also made huge sacrifices and they put me in private school my entire life. So I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Mhm.
And I was a very, very good student. I think some of my friends said I was a goody two shoes, but I did what I had to do.
Right.
I loved English. I used to write other people's papers because I liked doing it.
Mhm.
Too.
But I loved being, amongst the people. And my grandparents were really my first role models because I watched them give back. From the little that we had, they gave me so much. I thought we were rich. I had no idea we were low income, but they gave back at the church. They did food distributions. They ran the voting polls on our block. They ran the block club. Everyone came to our house. And all I knew was that you gave and you shared, and life was better if you followed that.
Well, Robert, I'm gonna ask this question because she keep on talking about her grandparents and growing up. Now, I grew up in San Diego, what they would call the neighborhood, and my mama could make a pound of ground round last the whole entire week. So let's talk about your grandparents and how because they said everybody would come to your house to eat. So what would be some of the things that they would feed the neighborhood, because it seemed like they always had food?
Oh my God, they did always have food. And one of my best friends, she would come and she would say, "Oh, I found this." I said, "What do you mean you found it? It wasn't lost." She would find a box of Snickers, or, she would find, my grandmother was a great cook. And so was my grandfather. My grandfather barbecued and he fished, and then he would bring the fish home, scale the fish, clean the fish, and we would have a fish fry, any given Friday. My grandmother would be in there cooking whatever it was from scratch, from chicken and dumpling to fried chicken. We just always had, more than enough. It was like the story in the Bible with the, 2 fish and the 5 loaves of bread. We just had it like that. And we never let anybody go hungry. And so I grew up, I felt like it was always a get together. And we always went to church. We always had the traditional Sunday dinner. I cry every time I watch the movie Soul Food because I feel like that was part of my family.
Right.
When you watched Soul Food, was you singing "Mama"? Did you start singing a song with it?
No, I was not blessed with the gift of song. I can do a lot of things, but that's not one of them.
Girl, every time I watch Soul Food, I almost pass out under the North God. I'm like, "Mama," and just let it go in. Right. Robert Earl.
Growing up in your neighborhood, because you didn't grow up in the suburbs, what was in you that had you see a bigger picture? Because so many people look at their circumstances and they let it determine how far they go. But there was something inside of you that had you look beyond and had you move forward and had you press forward to pursue your goals.
Well, I always said I would never be a victim of my circumstances. And it wasn't that my circumstances were bad. Again, we had a good life. But I looked around and I realized that there was more than just 83rd and Broadway. And that's where I grew up. And again, my grandparents wanted me to be better than them, to go further than them. And I knew that what I would not ever do was disappoint them. And so you have to find what motivates you. It might be your parents, it might be your children, but who is it that, motivates you, that does that for you? And for me, it was really making sure that I made them proud. Unfortunately, I lost my grandfather, over, 20 years ago, but my grandmother stayed with me until she was 90 years old. Wow. And we just lost her about 5 years ago. And so she got to really see. My grandfather saw a little bit, but my grandmother got to really see the seeds that she planted and she watered, and she got to see so much of my success. And I'm able to live with, the fact that she's gone on to glory, but she got to see some of it here before she left.
Wow. Now this is the one thing that I want you to take us on a journey now, because see, you vice president now. You rocking with the big dogs. You in the sky boxes and private jets and all the other things. Let's start off and take people through your journey of employment or career path and walk them through that, because I really need them to hear where you started and how you ended.
There you go.
So after college, I went to college in Nevada, Reno. I was an English major and criminal justice was my minor. Came back to LA and wasn't really doing much, and got asked to be a temporary receptionist at West Angeles Church of God in Christ.
All right, Kojak.
Yes, and I was not Kojak. So that was definitely a little different for me at 22 years old. But I took the position, and what was supposed to be temps it became a 2-year position. And so I stayed there for 2 years, and I met a wonderful couple who I'm still friends with, who told me about a position at Merrill Lynch. And I thought, why would I apply there? Like, I don't like business or finance. I'm not into math. And they said, it's a great opportunity and you should do it. And so I did. And Merrill Lynch took an opportunity on a young person like myself who had no experience, but they thought that they could teach me and groom me. And so they did. And I
Okay,
spent
but hold on. I got to interrupt you. Now,
okay.
so now your first job, was your first job the receptionist, or did you have any jobs leading up to the receptionist?
At West Angeles?
No, just in
In general.
general.
Oh, I mean, when I was 15, I worked at McDonald's. Didn't
Okay, so
everybody?
okay, so that's important. So you started off at McDonald's.
I started off at McDonald's and I loved McDonald's. I
Okay.
loved working there.
And so when you went from McDonald's and then you went to college, or did you have any other jobs before you went to the receptionist?
Let's see. I did work at a doctor's office because I
Mhm.
went to St. Mary's Academy in Inglewood, goes
Mhm.
SMA, and Daniel Freeman Hospital was there. And so
Mhm.
I worked multiple summers and throughout the school year at Daniel Freeman and at a cardiologist office.
See, the reason why I wanted to start off right there is because that's where most of our young people are at.
Come on.
And so now we can go forth, because I
Yes.
want them to know how far
You
the Lord
serve,
will
your
take you.
foundation,
And you started, you said, wait a minute, I had a job at 15. Hello, knock, knock, zoom, zoom. And for you, because your grandparents were servants, you were working long before 15.
way before.
True, true. And they didn't even want me to work at 15, but I was like, no, I'm doing this and I'm paying my own way. I remember paying for my cheerleading uniform. I
Mhm.
remember paying for some of the little things back then because I worked. I was making minimum wage was $3.35 an hour.
Preach on it,
Wow.
preach on it.
$3.35. I remember that like it was yesterday. And I used to catch the bus and was proud and happy to do that. And so, yes, that is where the story really began. So thank you for bringing that back to my memory.
But these young people today, you really need to listen. And you parents that are listening, let your children hear this, because so many of them want to jump to the mountaintop. We don't want to work in a McDonald's. But you don't really have an education because you're still in high school learning. So why would they send you to a job that pays $20 an hour when they don't know if you can even do a job that pays $3 an hour?
Exactly. And when I got promoted to fries and to the bin where I was calling out the food orders, I thought I was something. To this day, I still eat at McDonald's. That was a great experience. And it really taught me some discipline because I had to show up on time. I had to have a clean uniform. I had to serve the people. I had to have a good attitude. And so, yes, I do believe that young people should look for employment.
Now transition from Merrill Lynch.
Yeah, that's what I want to make
From
sure.
Merrill Lynch to the Lakers, because it wasn't your plans, but God has a master plan for all of us.
But also want you to talk about where you started at Merrill Lynch and then where you ended, because see, this is all the journey.
Right.
Yes. So when I started at Merrill Lynch, I started as an assistant, and shortly after getting the job there, I found out that I was pregnant with my son, my one and only son, Kyler. And this was 1994. And I was afraid to tell anyone for fear that I would lose my job. I didn't understand my rights or the law back then.
Right.
And so I kept that a secret until about 6 months.
Wow.
And then I let everybody know, and they weren't very happy about it. And when I went on maternity leave, and back then I had 6 weeks of maternity leave, and I took 2 weeks of vacation and 2 weeks of unpaid. It wasn't all this where we are now. Thank God we've come a long way.
Right.
And so when I came back, they had basically demoted me. I became the backup switchboard operator, not even the primary, but the backup switchboard operator.
Mhm.
And when I said, hey, I don't think this is right, they said, you still have the same pay and we are within our right to, as long as we have you employed.
Right.
And so I did that for a couple of years. I was really unhappy, but I did it because I needed to take care of my son.
Right.
And a manager saw something in me and helped me to transfer to another office, moved me to Beverly Hills. And I was just a floater. And I said, why would you bring me here to be a floater? But what I didn't know, he was working on a plan to bring the first $1 million producer from another competitor to Merrill Lynch.
Wow.
And everybody wanted to know who's going to work with this $1 million producer. And he called me in his office and he said, Kiesha, it's you. And I said, I don't even have the experience. I've been a glorified assistant and intern for 2 years. I can't handle this. And he said, yes, you can. And I went on to work with that individual for 16 years. And we built a $1 billion business together. And it was very lucrative. But all the while, the 18 years that I was at Merrill Lynch, I did community relations for free for 18 years. Because while I was...
You serve free?
I served, I mean, I got paid to do my day job,
Right.
but I did the evening and the night job and the weekend job for free.
Wow.
For Merrill Lynch, because I was the bridge. I was the person in the gap.
Yeah.
I could take the high net worth individuals, the clients, the brokers, and I could bring them to South Central and to Watts and to Compton because those people had a heart to give. They didn't know how.
Right.
And so I was the vehicle that helped get their money into the programs that needed it the most.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there because I know this is not the end of your career path because we want to hear the next transition. But when you started at Merrill Lynch, there came a bump blessing in the road. Okay. And that was that you became pregnant with your one and only son. Let's talk about being in that position, being young, having a really, kind of like great position. And all of a sudden you hit this crossroad in your life. Let's talk about that and how you navigated being a single parent and raised your son for the 18 years you were at Merrill Lynch. So you raised him to manhood while you were at Merrill Lynch. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So, I mean, it was a blessing. My baby was a blessing. I started at 24, him in my belly at 24. And the job was lucrative and it took care of us because I didn't have any outside help. I had a family that stepped in where they could. I used to joke there were so many people's names on his emergency card who could pick him up because I needed the village. It took a village. But I used to take him to work with me when I didn't have childcare. And I remember him crawling around in my office and I was like, oh my God, I'm in here trading stocks and bonds. I'm doing all this stuff. And I got my baby in here. What I didn't realize what I was doing at the time was grooming him for what God had for him. And so at 10 years old, I remember him being in the office and I couldn't find him. And I'm like, where is this boy? I'm going to get fired. He was talking stocks with a couple of advisors. They were talking about their stock picks and he was talking about his. He later went on to intern for them at 18. So again, I started at 24. 24 years later, he started at 24 at the same Merrill Lynch office that I started in. And he started as a financial advisor, way higher than where I was.
Wow.
And that's how God will bring it back full circle for you.
So here's the thing, because I want you to take this moment to talk to every mother that is at this crossword, this single parent, and literally give them a word of encouragement because this story could be a movie.
Could be a book
I
and
want
a
to put
movie.
this on a Lifetime
book
movie.
and a movie.
Yes, because this is a blessing.
Yes,
because a lot of people would have said there was another route you could have went.
Yes.
And my question is, why didn't you take that route? And just, I want you to elaborate to help those young women that.
And there was a moment when I thought about taking another route. When I went back to work, my child was, only like 6 weeks old. And I had to leave him in the care of my grandparents. And I was able to afford help from one of our neighbors. And he was not transitioning well and it was not working. And he was miserable and crying every day. And I was crying. And I was like, Lord, I don't know. Should I quit my job? And should I just apply for government assistance, and just stay at home and take care of my child? But I wanted more for him. I did not want to be a statistic. I did not want to be what the world thought I should be at 24, unmarried, single mom. I didn't want that for him. And so I just had to persevere and I had to push through. And after a couple of months, he started to transition and was okay with me leaving the house. And he started sleeping at night and I started being able to sleep at night. And I just saw the blessings starting to manifest. And I was so happy that I didn't give up. And not that that road would have been giving up, but it would have been much harder journey had I decided to detour that way. It would have been much more challenging to get back on the road that God had for me. And so sometimes, you know, the plans that God has for you, they're not going to be without bumps in the road. They're not going to be flower beds of ease, but that's still what he has designed for you, because all of that made me stronger. It gave me life experience. It made me appreciate and made me humble when I did achieve certain successes. And so I'm thankful, you know, for the journey. And so to the single moms out there, you know, it's hard for me to listen to any excuses because I was already you and I already did it. You know, the car that I drive today was not the bus that I rode on when I was pregnant with my child.
Wow.
You know, when I pull up now, that's a different person than I was at 24. So I don't take excuses. We all have to work hard. I was not born into wealth. I was not born into this family of prestige, but my family was very wealthy in spirit and in giving. And so I say to the single moms out there, you can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. If I can groom my son to be the man that he has graduated from Fisk University. He is a financial advisor and he is a pastor. E-Faith LA, Empowered Faith LA is our church, and my son is our pastor.
Wow.
Amen. So now,
the seeds planted.
It can be done. You are a living example.
Yes.
You raised your son. 18 years at Merrill Lynch. Let's talk about the shift.
The shift. So 18 years at Merrill Lynch, and I'm doing the community work for free. And all of a sudden, you know, we go through a recession and I'm nervous. Am I going to have a job? Am I going to make it through this time? Bank of America comes in, buys Merrill Lynch. They decide that they need me to move over to community relations. I'm like, hold up, wait a minute.
Right.
That's a pay cut. You know, I'm in a revenue generating field and it's good for me. And you want me to give up money to move over to give away money? And I said, I don't think I can do this. You know, my son is going off to college, and two mentors who I'm still friends with today said to me, you will never end up where you want to be if you don't take this leap of faith. And that's what it was, a leap of faith.
Yes.
And so I prayed about it. And I did it. And I went over to the Bank of America side in community relations, and I was given the sponsorship of the bank of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And that was my entry into sports philanthropy, into sports, and really taking my community relations to a serious level. Right. And my boss at the time said, if you do this right, people are going to come looking for you. And I said, oh, I got this. I'm going to do it right. And at the time, Magic Johnson and the new ownership was just taking over the Dodgers. And the bank was had a contract. It was about $1.2 million per year. And it wasn't a long-term contract. And that was the sponsorship. And the Dodgers looked at me and said, yeah, that's way undervalued. We're worth about $5 million every year. So you need to negotiate. And I'm like, I'm not in position to do that. But I spoke it into existence. I started like second from the bottom. And when I finished there, I had taken that contract to over $5 million a year for 5 years. So $25 million. I was a vice president, and Jeannie Buss, owner of the Lakers, called over to the Dodgers. She didn't call Merrill Lynch. If I had been over there, she would have never found me. She called the Dodgers, and Lon Rosen, who used to be Magic Johnson's agent, Lon went to college with Jeannie and they're really good friends. And she said, Lon, do you have anybody to help run the Lakers Foundation? And he said, I have one person. She doesn't even work here, but she's your person. And they called me on a Monday. And by Friday, I had a whole new career.
Look at God. And guess what? That came from her reputation and from her work ethics. My daddy always told me it's important to have a good name. It'll go before you. Had you been a horrible worker, the opportunity would have never come.
Exactly.
So I wanted to say this because, you know, I'm not hating on you. But the bling blingage on your hand keep catching my attention. Can you tell me what that bling bling is?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is the Lakers 2020 championship ring.
The 17th.
Yes,
wow.
Our 17th. And yes, as an executive there, I was given a championship ring, and I'm so proud of it, and I wear it. And I wear it with pride. And I let all of the youth in my community know, if I can achieve this, so can you. I never dribbled a basketball. I never got on the court, but I did the work off of the court.
Mhm.
And so this is a part of my reward. And I'm so excited that this is what the Lakers do to reward good work.
So I'm gonna just tease you. Okay, you got this young man that you have raised from the baby all the way up, and now he's passionate and everything. How was he as a kid? Did he start walking around? Y'all just don't know who my mama is. How was it for him growing up, having a mother that was doing so much in the community?
Exactly.
You know what? I don't think he really realized like who I was until much later. As a matter of fact, it was just the opposite. I remember one Mother's Day weekend, he said, "Can you just be my mother this weekend?" And I was like, wow. He had to share me his whole life. He doesn't have siblings. He's my only child.
Right.
But I had to be a parent or a guardian or a mentor to so many others.
Mhm.
And so he's used to sharing me. He finally got to the point where he was okay with it, but it took some time. I will never forget, we were driving down the street and we see a young lady on the bus stop, and she went to our church. And he looked at me and he said, "Go on, turn around," because he knew I was going back.
That's your heart. That's your heart.
That's just who I am. And so, he now has a heart for the people and he understands. But as a young man growing up who had to share your mom all the time, there were times when I know that it was tough for him. There were times when I was the last person picking up my kid because I was doing something, working. I made it to almost everything that I could make it to, but he had to make some sacrifices as well.
I just think it's amazing how God positions us. He had you around all that money early on with Merrill Lynch. So when you went to the Lakers, you weren't all starstruck and you were able to handle yourself in your environment. It's very, very important in the entertainment field, but also in the business world, that you act like you should be there, even if you don't feel like you should be.
That is so true, Robert. God couldn't have placed me at the Lakers in my 20s. I don't know what I would have done. I would not have had the mindset, or, I would have been thinking about so many other things. But he put me there in my late 40s. I tell people it took me 45 years to become a Laker girl, but I finally did it. I just wear a different uniform. But he had to, groom me and shape me and get ready for this. And so, no, I'm not, starstruck. I'm more impressed when I find out that you take care of your families and you take care of your community and you give back. And I don't have to call you and remind you to show up for an event because you said you were going to do it. Those are the things that impress me about the professional athletes that I work with. I want to know, what are you passionate about? It can't just be about playing basketball. Basketball opens the door, but then what do you do once you walk through that door?
Well, one of the things that I want to say is the good report. My team here at GOD Radio and Mandate Records, they got to travel to LA for the Kurt Franklin Maverick City, the Kingdom Tour on Skid Row. And that's where they connected with you and met with you. And what I loved about it is as they came back, they talked about several things, but they talked about this young lady that they met that was a vice president of the LA Lakers, and everybody there with that was from our team kept on saying how down to earth you were, how reachable, how you were actually involved, not just being a bystander, but you were actually active, involved. So that is very amazing because people that did not know you walked away feeling like you were in friendship with them and they had established that. Tell me, how does that serve you in your current capacity, number one? And then number two, I'm going to ask you, and how did you become this phenomenal international guest speaker and lecturer?
Well, it serves everyone to just be positive and to be pleasant. And so it's hard for me to walk around and not make a new friend. I'm making friends everywhere I go because God put me in this position for a reason. I can't ever be too high to serve the people. And so when I went out there that day, unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring my full team. The way we like to come out, we were running a camp called Camp Lakers. And so I literally had to come with one colleague and her boyfriend. And it was just the three of us. And so the mission wanted to keep us in the VIP room. And I said, no, I want to go out on the street. I want to serve the people. And they were like, oh, Lord, where are we going to put her? So they put us in the food tent. And I found myself and my colleague, we were cleaning up after the people that lived there on Skid Row. We were just trying to make it clean and safe and nice for them.
Right.
And the people at the mission were like, wow, we can't believe that you're okay with this. And I'm like, yeah, that's who I am. I didn't come here. I'm a sponsor. Yes. You know, I'm a community advocate. I'm representing the Lakers, but I'm also a human being. And these are human beings. And so then I met everybody, and then I met the wonderful people from the radio station, from God Radio 1, and they were like my family members. Yeah. All of a sudden, I had a big brother over here, and I had a sister over here, and we just, I tagged along with them. My colleague had to leave, but I didn't feel like I was by myself. I was with a new part of my family that I had just never met before. And so it was genuine and authentic. And I couldn't wait to come home and tell my son about these people. And we connected, and it's been great. I even had lunch with Christine on Saturday.
Yes,
from World
Vision. World Visions. And those two were together with Walter and I, and Evangel, our program director. And when we met you, it was like we had known you for so long. And you and I were at the front of the stage with everybody, enjoying Kirk Franklin and Maverick City. It was amazing. I even looked over my shoulder and I was like, look at my sister. We here enjoying ourselves.
Right on Skid Row. With people. We could have been on the stage. We could have been backstage, but Robert was like, no, we got to get to the front of the stage. And so we were engrossed with all the people, and that was okay. And we were standing shoulder to shoulder, but that's what God wants.
Yes. Yes.
There's no big eyes and little U's. We're all one. We are one family.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about, when God called us and we started Mandate Records stands for Making a Necessary Difference at the End. And we got into radio based on demand. We had been doing radio for over 20 years, but we put people in position to do radio. But when people kept saying that it's not going well, we came in and we launched GODradio1.com. We didn't know when we did it that we would be heard in 37 countries and that all the impact, but it was really because it was motivated by the people. Our nonprofit is motivated to see young people come into the industry and literally be trained on how to have a good work ethic. Our whole team is about, they would rather be on the street versus in the church. We do church because that's, in the Christian atmosphere, but they'll do the prisons. And we have one of our artists, one of the few artists that actually is allowed to go into all of the big penitentiaries in California. And they allow us to bring instruments and cameras and everything else to minister to the people. What I really love about this whole scenario is simply this. Some 27 years ago, I had a relationship with a young man by the name of Will Hayworth. Robert Earl Dean and I knew Will Hayworth.
Yes.
Now, fast forward, Will said, I want you to meet somebody. And it was his wife. And then we connected. And then all the dots start flowing together. And it allowed us to see this like 2 degrees of separation that we're all connected in. And so it's amazing how God will take young people from way back then and reconnect them for purpose now to literally build generations to follow. So tell me about that. In your connected piece, how has it been being with the Lakers, but also reconnecting with people in your past that be like, Kiesha, really? Girl.
Yes. Well, that actually, that goes back to the second question that you asked me about becoming this speaker. I started speaking in church many, many, many years ago.
Yes.
I started in church doing inspirational messages. My late pastor, Pastor Ray L. Weaver Sr., saw something in me. And I was like, you want me to do what? And he knew me since the time I was about 12 years old. and his daughter is my best friend, Lanita Weaver. And we went to St. Mary's together, and he put me up there. And then it was like every week. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't. And I was writing the inspirations and then delivering them.
Right.
And it became such a ministry that we took it actually to the prisons. We put it as a part of our reach out. And so we would send one of my inspirations every month to a group of, inmates at different institutions.
Wow.
And we used to go on mission trips. And I used to head an auxiliary that took a group of young women. Literally, we went to San Quentin. We went to death row. And do you know, like, what it felt like to have, prisoners calling my name because they knew me because of the mail that we sent them.
Yes.
And so that was like, wow, so this book that's inside of me should have been birthed many, many, many years ago, because I've been doing the work and writing the pieces. And I was always, I love public speaking, public facing positions. And so now, to go out on behalf of the Lakers to represent one of the most iconic teams in sports history, and to be able to do that, not just in Los Angeles, but to be asked to speak at MIT, to be asked to speak at Harvard. I'm going to Delaware State University next month.
Wow.
To be able to bring this message and to show them, no matter what they look like, this is who I am. I'm authentic. I'm bringing all the South Central, the Watts, the Compton. I'm bringing it all so that you understand the totality of who and what is Kiesha Nix, and to encourage somebody. Maybe it encourages somebody that doesn't look like us to see us differently. Being the only person in the room sometimes that looks like me is an opportunity. I don't see it as any kind of setback or, oh my God, I'm nervous. No, let me represent for my people. And so when I see people from my past, it is amazing because they know the journey, or they know bits and pieces, Leonard, they know this, when you were this Kiesha over here, when you did this. And so it all comes together, and they know, and they can attest to, I'm the same person, and I'm not going to look down on you because I'm over here. No, what can I do? What can we do together? How can I help you? Meeting Christine Hayworth there that day, we already are sitting down, breaking bread, thinking about what can we do together jointly to help our world.
Yeah. Now, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing?
I always wanted to be an attorney, and I was a criminal justice minor. And, I love me some Law and Order. So I feel like, it's still in me. I would be out there representing, defending the people. I can put up a pretty good argument and debate. So I think that's probably what I would be doing.
So, I have to do this to you and for you. I want you just to take maybe 2-3 minutes, and I want you to brag on that young man, the pastor, because I want people to really know. We want to do an interview on him, also with his vision for the church.
Right.
But just take a moment to brag on that young king.
Kyler is the best thing that I've ever done, and I thank God for being his mother. I wanted him to pop on this morning, but because he had a call at 8:00 and he had a business meeting at 9:30, and he has to get up because the stock market opens at 6:30 LA time.
Right.
Watching him do that, he just flew back in from Atlanta, where he was at the African American Financial Advisor Symposium. He graduated recently from the Financial Advisor Training Program at Merrill Lynch in Beverly Hills. And he is only the second Black male in the last 10 years to graduate successfully from that program.
Wow.
And it is very strenuous. I have watched many people try and not succeed. And then for him, the program should have been 2 years, but because of COVID, it was extended. It took him almost 4 years. And I watched this young man, pour into that program, and he was born for this. And so now to see him successful, but then to see him also birthing a church in the middle of pandemic. He's been preaching since he was 16 years old.
Wow.
And God spoke to him way back then. And he said, Mom, it's something I can't even explain to you because you wouldn't understand. This was between me and God.
Wow.
And I said, Okay. He said, I kept having the reoccurring dream that I was Jonah and I was in the belly of the whale.
Mm.
I was running from my calling. And he said, God, I don't want to be in the belly. So he had to accept the call at 16, which is a huge, challenge for a young man
Yes.
in South Central, going to Dorsey High School, then going off to Fisk University, having people judge you for the decisions and the choices that you make, still trying to serve God and serve the people. And so it's been a lot for him. And so we went through multiple, after our pastor passed away when my son was 15, and we really have just not been united in the right space for a long, long time. And we tried a lot of things that weren't the right thing. And so during the pandemic, my son launched an online Bible study. And the first week we had 9 people. We grew to over 150 people, and we still do it once a week online so that you're safe. And you can log in from anywhere. We have people in Africa. We have people all over the world logging in with us. And then in November of last year, he said, Mom, God has led me to launch a church in person. And I said, we're in a pandemic. He said, I know it's going to be safe and we're going to do everything by the health and safety protocols, but this is what God wants. Right. And we launched Empowered Faith LA last November. So we're coming up soon on our 1-year anniversary. And I thought the church was really for the young people, for the millennials. But when I look around, there's more people that look like me, than anything. But he just wanted to give people an avenue and an opportunity. And it's very untraditional. He might wear a suit one week. He might wear jeans one week. But every week you're going to get the word. And we just tell people to come as they are. We have a DJ that spins gospel music. We have a great praise and worship team, and we give opportunities to people. If you have a business, we promote it inside the church. We support one another.
Wow.
I had my 3 interns come yesterday. These interns have been coming every Sunday, Ubering to church because they have a want and a need, and they're from Fisk University. And so yesterday, I got with a few of the women in the church. We call ourselves the Auntie Board. The Auntie Board came together and put over $1,000 together to share for these 3 interns. They were in tears because they had no idea. They were just coming to church to say goodbye on their last Sunday. And we wanted to send them off with a little something.
Okay.
What a blessing.
That is good. But now I got to deal with the rumors.
You always got a rumor.
I got a rumor for you. Now, rumor has it that when you and your son were journeying in his growing up, that one day you had ordered shirts that said K and K. Is that true?
I don't know if that's true. I may have. I mean, his name is Kyler and my name is Kiesha, so it fits.
Yeah, I just wanted to know because you know how parents would be like, "Oh, this gonna be cute. We're gonna have shirts that say matching shirts that say K and K."
She more hip than that.
Yeah. So let me. I
probably did make him dress in the same color as me. Things like that.
Right.
Okay. And then I wanted to know if you could send a shout out to your nail technician, because I see you with the gold and everything like that.
So, and what you can't see is the Louis Vuitton and the brown and gold. And,
I see that.
If you're gonna wear a Lakers championship ring, you have to be ready at all times. So to my nail tech 1010, I love you so much.
Oh, 1010.
Yes. And 1010 is major. I mean, like, it's appointment only. Like, you gotta be on the schedule. And a couple of weeks ago, I was able to be in a photograph with Nicole Whiteman of the Dodgers and her championship ring, and Molly Higgins of the Rams and her championship ring.
Wow.
Everybody said, all we can say is the nails are on point.
Yes.
Now you all did something very special in Los Angeles. Let's talk about this as we get to the end of this interview, with all the different people, the different sports teams from the Los Angeles area coming together. I think that's commendable.
Yes, this is probably the only city that I know of that's been able to get all the sports teams, all 12 professional sports teams. So that's you and your rival. That's the Lakers and the Clippers, Dodgers and the Angels, Rams and the Chargers. Every sports team, the Sparks, LAFC, we all came together literally the Sunday after George Floyd was murdered.
Wow.
And we decided that we needed to do something for our city that would impact Black and brown youth in our city. We can change the world, but you have to start at home first.
Somewhere.
And so we came together and decided that two of the causes that we needed to champion, because we are sports teams and that's our business, we can make sports fair and equitable for all around Los Angeles. If that means providing buses, coaches training, making sure that our kids that want to play the sport have the opportunity, because sometimes the means just aren't there. So we came together and we funded programming to make sure that this could happen. And then the second thing we decided to take up was opening up our doors and making sure, as professional sports teams, we created internships and employment opportunities for people of color. We can't just talk about it. We have to really be about it. And so we had our second year anniversary, and we come together around the LAFC soccer stadium, and we march in unity, and we hold signs, and we bring law enforcement, and we let the youth lead everything as a symbol that we are standing against racism. We are standing against inequality. We are coming together. We're standing against police brutality. We are coming together to make a change, and we have been extremely successful. And I hope to see other cities, copy what we're doing.
Well, wow. Kiesha, Miss Nix, Vice President Nix, we want to say thank you so much for doing this interview on GOD Radio 1. We thank you. How they say the song, I Am Every Woman. You are a change maker. You are that person that Maya Angelou wrote about, the phenomenal woman. You are that person that literally is bringing, like Robert said, a light, but also you're an example that you can, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't it doesn't say where you're going, but when you have the tenacity and you keep God first, and I want to say that, and you keep God first in your life, God will navigate you through the roadblocks, through the obstacles, and he will take you to your destiny. So I want to say thank you for letting God take you to your destiny. And I know that the best is yet to come. Your story is not over.
No.
So with that being said, any final words?
I just want to tell her thank you too for just being who you are. You have been such a down-to-earth, approachable, kind-hearted person, and it draws people. And a lot of times people are in these positions in this industry, entertainment industry, I'm putting it all together, and they're not very nice to people. But you represent our team, the Lakers, very well. I look forward to when I come down there and get a tour of our facilities.
Yes, I welcome the both of you to a Lakers game. I will host you. Yes, I will host you. And what I just want to say in closing is what I've been saying, to whom much is given, much is required. And so you don't ever get so high that you change how you treat or look at people. You don't want to burn any bridges, because you will have to walk across that bridge again. And I just believe that. And that has been my life story. And you're right. God is so not through with me yet. There are so many more chapters of this book. I'm so excited about what he is going to allow to happen and how many people he's going to allow to be blessed through me.
Yes.
Well, with that being said, this is Miss Kiesha Nix, and we thank you, Miss Nix, for coming on to GOD Radio 1. We look forward to many more interviews and really to hear your progress reports and your praise reports of the young people. And one day, maybe we can come back together and you could bring some of your interns on and let them be a part of your testimonial of what God is doing in your current position. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right here on GOD Radio 1, this is none other than Vice President Miss Kiesha Nix.
Yes, and give Jeannie Buss a hug from her brother in San Diego.
I will. I'm actually going to the office in a few minutes, so I will see Jeannie really soon.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.